You're not ready for this one. Oh yes, hello there, my fellow citizens of the Gate. I'm really excited for this. How do you like the idea of having a follower army 13 strong as you rampage across your adventure with this endless horde supply of minions of all shapes and sizes doing your bidding as you become Faerun's one and only Pokemon trainer? It's just absurd, it really is. Now, I'm not about to tell you it's the most min-max brokenly strong thing in the world, though it's certainly strong. The fight that you're currently watching develop, which sprawls out across the town. There's groups of summons taking groups of enemies like far away from the other group taking groups of enemies, and you can just really control the battlefield with this many units to distract and mess with the enemies. And you know, it's like 7 guards and a steel watcher, and I'm by myself with my summons, no extra party members, which you usually have on Tactician, and it's getting the job done, and I have like half of them survive the encounter, but it takes a few turns. More than anything, though, it's just fun, right? It's just absurd. It's a spectacle to behold. It turns every battle into this epic war, and it's so satisfying to actually pilot. I have kind of balanced this so that you have the greatest both number of summons, but more importantly, variety of summons. You can go a bit necromancer wizardy and get more and stronger undead if you combine that with Spore Druid, and there's a few other ways to do this, but the best undead build is very different from the best summoner minion build, which this is. So what exactly is it? What have I combined? How are we putting this together? Well, before we do that, just a quick little rundown of the troops then. We have our ever loyal companion, Scratch the Dog. We have Uz, the Brain Dog, 4 fungal zombies, 2 ice mephits, a flying ghoul, a dryad, and the wood woad that she brings with us. We've got a fire myrmidon, the elemental, the most powerful summon here, and we've got a spiritual weapon too. And just reeling off that list really hammers it home, doesn't it? Okay, let's actually get to this then. How we build it from the levels, the classes, what we take, and then afterwards how it's actually played, some tips and tricks, and so on and such forth. And yes, you do end up with heavy armor, you got your shield, you have really high AC, you end up with the ability to support your summons in a really meaningful and fun way that makes them super hard to kill, that we'll get to, and it really does synergize beautifully. So, with the boys waiting in the barn, let's head to Withers, and yes, they all do last until either they die or a long rest, so once you've summoned, you are good to go with them. Let's respec up and actually take you through this. So, we want to start with Druid then, as we will be getting heavy armor and a few other things from a subclass later on. Then, cantrips, just kind of get what you like. Shillelagh's nice, especially early game if you're going to start as this setup right from the beginning, and guidance is always good. Your ability-wise should look like this, with 16 in wisdom and 16 in constitution. Constitution, you know, for the tankiness, and the wisdom for your spells that matters. And then I like to dump int, leave dex and charisma on 10, and then get a bit more strength as it's the most valuable, especially for just jumping around the place. And then we move on to our leveling. Beginning with, of course, level 2. I know, I'm not going crazy today. We'll go from 1 to 2. I think that makes sense. Where we grab our subclass, which is, of course, Circle of Spores, the necromancer-flavored type of druid. So, then grab your extras. I do like to make sure we get Healing Word and Cure Wounds. Talk to Animals is just nice to have. This lets us support and heal a few of our key summons, keep them going, but we'll have a much better way to do that later on, so don't worry about it too much for now. I will just grab myself some extra jumping, and then we'll move on. The goal here is to take the druid fairly high before we dip into our second class. When you dip is kind of up to you. Obviously, I'll share when I do, but such is the case. Now, technically, you can use your concentration on Flaming Sphere, which technically is another summon, but it means burning your concentration slot on another summon instead of something like Bless or something a little bit more important like Call Lightning to help with damage. So you can do that earlier on just to have extra guys, but you'll probably get rid of this later. In any case, let's keep rising up through the ranks once more. Now we are at level 4, we can get our first feat, and in this instance we want to just get a couple more points of wisdom, again for the spells where that does matter. The feats on this are the most. You technically could go for your Warcaster if you do want to keep an extra summon out with concentration. Honestly, I could see this as totally viable over the wisdom. Basically here, choose between an extra bit of wisdom or Warcaster, and you will be happy either way. And then an extra cantrip, that's all well and good. Level 6 is our first proper big spike when everything comes online here, but level 5 does give us our first bit of dead in Animate Dead for free, which is a really nice little extra perk of being the Spore Druid. I do like Spike Growth, it does come in quite useful, but for now I would grab Call Lightning, and then Plant Growth actually turns out to be quite good. Even though, of course, it does affect your summons, the enemies seem to suffer a lot more than you do, especially as a lot of your summons are flying or teleporting and have really, really high mobility. Then we get to the Fungus Boys. This is what I really love about Spore Druid, and I will admit, Spore Druid is one of my guilty pleasure subclasses in actual tabletop. It belongs to the highest level character I've ever actually gotten to in my longest running campaign, and I just think it's really fun, even if it's not the most powerful. But here in Baldurs Gate, it certainly is. Fungal Infestation. This lets you turn a corpse into a fungal zombie, a zombie that will turn into more zombies if it kills its target. And this is great. You can have 4 of them, and they really do become your own little personal horde. So, we now get to our level 4 spells, which is really, really nice, and it is at this point that we can grab 3 very much important ones. That is Conjure Minor Elemental, Conjure Woodland Being, and then if you really want to, your Grasping Vine, which is technically another summon, but again, it does use your concentration slot, so if you do want to use these, do take Warcaster instead of the Wisdom, but these 2 are your first extras. We've now got an extra 3 summons from here, the Woodland Being and her Woad, the Minor Elementals, either the Azer or the 2 Mephits, and then your zombies and your Animate Dead. We're starting to really feel it. It is at this point then that you have a choice. You can either push for level 5 spells to get your Summon Elemental, or you can now start to dip into supporting your creatures as much as possible. I like to at least grab the second feat here in Alert, so we can actually go fairly soon in combat and start summoning, because obviously you won't always be running around with every single summon prep like I was to show you, so this gets that rolling as you fight. Obviously you'll have your actual other 3 party members too, so you're not relying on just your summons, but I think Alert works really, really well here. So I will let that happen, and then we are going to do a little bit more druiding to level 9, as this is where we will end our druidness. I do like to go straight for Conjure Elemental here. I think it is too important to the whole roster, and I think we're good enough at supporting our summons in normal gameplay with party members that we don't need to get the last little cherry on top that I will be showing you in a second. I do like Mass Cure Wounds. Again, this just heals all your summons. Obviously, the undead are a different story, but it it will keep these guys alive, which is really, really nice too. Now we actually multiclass, and we are going to multiclass into Cleric, as you might well have been able to tell. We do give up the final Spore feature, but honestly it's not that the best and we don't really need it. The Cleric of choice then is Life Domain, and the reason being is its Channel Divinity and one other key spell that we'll get to, but being able to bless your key summons so they can land their hits more often is really, really good. Choose whatever you want for your deity, and then we'll grab a few of the earlier spells from the Cleric. Offensively, you can go it if you want, get your Guiding Bolt, but I like the more utility-based stuff once we're getting spells from a multi-class dip. And then at level 2, we get this beautiful Preserve Life. A AoE huge heal for you, your party members, and every single summon, except the undead. And this scales with your total level, not your cleric level, in how much it heals, so it's still plenty effective for us, and you can do it once per short rest. Then, once we get to the final level and level 3 Cleric, we get to the real, like, this just makes it amazing. And it is this. Aid. This is so, and I cannot stress this enough, good for the summoner setup, and we'll get to exactly why in a moment. And now, at this point, we can get our little extra bonus, Spiritual Weapon. We also want to grab Prayer of Healing to top up our summon army outside of combat between fights, and I also really like to get Silence to stop enemy casters blowing up our army with AoE spells. This really does fit in so nicely, this little injection of Cleric, and gives you the tools you need to really capitalize on your army, as well as, of course, giving you heavy armor and some really nice tanky amounts of AC. And to stress, you can get that 3 levels of Cleric whenever you feel like it along your journey to Druid level 9. You can make that decision for yourself if you want it at a different stage than I do, but given I'm level 12, it doesn't matter as much when I take it, but I still think at the end is probably the best path power-wise. So here we are then, everything set up with a few, let's call them volunteers. I'll move the Cloud Kill that you do get, which is a really nice, powerful AoE spell, so certainly worth making use of. You are quite a strong caster yourself in this on top of your summons, so definitely do take advantage of that. So, firstly, let us raise our zombies. These are your fungal infestation charges, and you get 4 of them. So, here we are, and boom! First fungal zombie is risen to us, and then we do that 3 more times to get the maximum of them. Obviously, you can use this as your reaction in combat. As enemies go down, zombies come up, and you start swarming them, and that is really nice. So, there we go. That is our first 4 summons. Then, in Act 1, as I'm sure you know, you can befriend Scratch the dog, and when you talk to him in camp and give him some pets and make him love you, you will then get the ability to just summon Scratch. You can also get the ability to summon a raven from Act 2 from He Who Was, if you give in to his sadistic torture, like, dead spirits vibe, and that can be an extra summon on top of this, but I don't have it on this playthrough. But I do have Conjure Us when you rescue him from the colony in Moonrise Towers in Act 2. I won't say 2 more, though if you're watching this, then obviously you know, so that's an extra little brain dog. So, you know, 2 more there. They're extras, they're not tied to the class, but definitely worth mentioning. Then we have our Animate Dead. You can only have 1 of these, however, when you get to 5th level spell slots, it upgrades. You don't have to choose just a basic zombie or skeleton, you can add a flying ghoul or a normal ghoul. I would always err on the side of flying ghoul, as they are very potent, and we'll get to why, so raise that up, and now we've got 1 extra. So that's the bonuses and the undead sorted. We can now get our Dryad, and she will rise up, and that's really nice. The aura that she has is very useful too, and then if we go to our Dryad, she also comes with a Wood Woad to give us, yes, even 1 more summon, and now he is ready for battle. Then we will summon our minor elementals, and in this case we've got Mud Mephits and Aether, or Ice Mephits. I like to do the Ice Mephits. I find them the most useful, especially in this pack of enemies. They offer a lot of mobility, a lot of control, they can knock people prone a lot, and they have a lot of AoE damage that is very reliable. And then finally, or at least kind of finally, we have our Summon Elemental. At level 5th slot, you have just the kind of normal ones, but we do get a 6 spell slot with this setup of classes and levels, so we can actually do a Myrmidon. Fire tends to be the best, it can self-haste, and it pumps out a lot of damage, so we bring that to the fore, and then we choose our spiritual weapon, and pull that out, and now the army is risen. And yes, you can use your concentration if you want on a vine, and get yet another one, though I like my concentration to be on Bless, and specifically then, the most important Bless targets are your Flying Ghoul, it is your Wood Woad and your Dryad, and then your Fire Myrmidon. They are like your big four, as it were. So, if I restore my level 6 spell slot, and I would definitely recommend getting the amulet that does this from the Warden in Moonrise Towers, as it really, really helps out here, we can now do the thing that Cleric really brings. Yes, we can preserve life and heal everything that affects. That's really cool, that's really useful. However, the zombie has 9 health, right? And even like the 42 on the Woodwoad, it's fine, the 30 on the Ghoul, okay. You start to see how, okay, only 21 on a Mephit, only the Myrmidon is really, truly tanky. And for some reason, the spiritual weapon, despite not having a turn limit, tends to go away, so you'll see it just kind of not there a lot of the time. But, Aid, if we cast this, and then upcast it all the way to level 6, not only will we heal everything for 25, including the zombies this time, but we will give everything an extra 25 max health. With 13 summons, that's like over 300 total collective health or damage needed to kill the army added. So a 9 health zombie suddenly becomes a 34 health zombie. Now a 55 health ghoul, a 67 woad, the 47 dryad, and the 46 mephit. Everything is now ultra tanky. And that is so important and so useful, and actually gives you some health to work with. And then we can cast more aids too later on to re-give them heals and health as we move through the battles. And then us, ourselves, we're on 124 health now. We can also do our symbiotic entity to use our wild shape charge as a Spore Druid to give us an extra 36 temporary health. So yeah, we are super ridiculously tanky. We can use our reaction to Halo of Spores for extra damage, and yes, your full arsenal of spells to help your summons out. Keep enemy casters silenced, and then you can also, if you really want, Sanctuary yourself so that the enemies can't even target you, and therefore they have to go after your summon army, leaving you completely safe and alone. I sometimes use this, sometimes don't, depends on the fight. Sometimes I like to take hits instead of my summons, but it is definitely an option that's there that is quite fun. If you're concentrating on an extra summon, then the Sanctuary does help a lot, so you don't get that broken, but if you have Warcaster, that is completely fine. Other than that, it's just fight things, right? Use your spells, use all your summon turns, use the best abilities on them, and have a great time doing it. Keep your summons spread out so they don't get AoE down, and really stretch out the battlefield. So let's actually go through them all on my recommended. We have the Fire Myrmidon. You can self-haste for 3 turns. You have this Swipe, which is incredibly effective and potent AoE, and I would definitely recommend using it if you don't have any of your allies in the way. Otherwise, you've got your Scorching Strike back to back, and this will do a decent amount of damage too. Then on our Flying Ghoul, this is why I'd suggest him. First of all, he is incredibly mobile. He can get some serious distance with his flying, and that is going to come in really handy for repositioning, especially when you've got so many bodies kind of crowded together. But he also has his claws, which aren't the most damaging, but they can paralyze. And if they paralyze, well then that target is now getting guaranteed hit and crit by all your other summons, and they will just melt. He can also heal himself against downed or knocked out enemies, which is really useful too. Then from us, you just want to be blasting off your synaptic discharges, doing a lot of damage with that, though his claws are fine too. Scratch, the goodest of boys, could just help with a few bites, but he's mainly there just for extra distraction, but he does have 30 health now, so that's really nice. Dryad then is very interesting. Her empowered shillelagh actually makes her auto attacks really goddamn potent and definitely worth using. Her aura then, that makes your allies able to travel difficult terrain, is really good too, and then we can entangle enemies to keep them on the spot, let them get surrounded by your summons and beaten up, and then using Spike Growth to kind of cut off an area of the battlefield that is advantageous for you, and your flying guys is really, really nice. She brings a lot of utility to this. Your ice methods then can self-detonate, but they'll do that automatically when they die, so don't worry about commanding them to. We have Ice Breath, which is an incredibly reliable, good AoE that only targets enemies, so you can blast it through your summons and not have to worry about it. But then you also have Chromatic Orb Cold. A little chip of damage, but mainly it does this spot of ice which will knock enemies prone to then let your summons and your zombies swarm them with advantage and get your damage in. Finally then, the Woodwode can also entangle for even more lockdown and CC, and then just do some smacking about the place when it is, and it's also very, very tanky too. Then your zombies, yeah, you just run up and you punch things, and hopefully they will turn into zombies when you kill them with the Crawling Gnaw. And that's sort of it. That is your summon army right there. Obviously your weapon, use its ability, hit people with it, and you are good to go. Keep everyone topped up, and generally just enjoy yourself with this. It's so much fun. Gear-wise, there's nothing crazy to recommend, other than, yes, this to get 2 level 6 slots, one for your Elemental Myrmidon, and the other for a level 6 aid, and then this from Balthazar, so your undead are even tankier, and you get a second copy of Animate Dead. Doesn't let you have a second undead, but it does let you cast another one for free if you are out of spell slots, so that's always nice. Then just put on your big heavy armor, your good old shield, and be lovely and tanky. There really is nothing more to it then. Fight with your army, fight with your allies, and know that the enemy is going to have to do a lot of work to stop you from killing them, and that really, really is glorious. And yeah, I really can't stress enough that silencing casters so they stop just murdering your dudes with like fireballs is really, really important, and another great reason for that cleric dip. Alright then guys, I hope you have enjoyed this, I hope you find it inspiring and at the very least fun, and if you do go for it, well, very much enjoy it. The ultimate summoner army build, and all the support to go with it that it needs. For now then, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.